All right, this is Kurt Ricks with my Internet Use Violations case study regarding Standard 5. I know that I am Dr. Forbes, a successful principal of a very successful affluent high school. I hired Miss Walker a year ago. Her first year proved to be difficult. She has very high expectations and has a rigorous classroom, which has been a challenge and a stress on many of her high achieving students who are not accustomed to having classes that are difficult or A's that are hard to get. Ms. Walker recently received an anonymous email that sent her to a website link, and the website had a threat posted on her questioning what would happen or who would want Ms. Walker to disappear. She took the threat very seriously and fears for her own safety. Among the things I need to know the specifics of our internet use policy, the specific guidelines of whether this would constitute a criminal matter if the culprit was found. I would like to talk to the district legal team regarding what kind of support they have regarding internet violations and teacher safety. I'd also need any other details I can get about the website or the email. I've already viewed them, but even more so from Ms. Walker and from our IT department. I also need to keep a close eye on Ms. Walker's state of mind, her capacity to move forward with her classes and career. I don't want to jeopardize her career for an investigation's sake. Also, in terms of what I believe the problem to be here, this is a whodunit, and what if they are found, and what if they are not? I think that there is a likelihood here that the culprit won't be found. They were obviously careful, they're internet savvy. I have to face that reality. Perhaps more importantly is how can I support Ms. Walker during this process and in the future? I want her to be a successful teacher. Category 2. My plan of action. Well, my first step would be to locate our internet use policy and our relevant discipline policies. I would then look into the district office as to how they handle this process. Do they have internet support that they already employ? Do I use my IT staff? I want to work closely with them. This shouldn't be some sort of investigation that I cowboy on my own. I would like to talk with our IT department and see what really is possible if there are resources to make using the website and using the email easier to find the culprit. And I'd want to identify what resources are available for Ms. Walker, whether those might be counseling or something of the like that would help her through this difficult part of the process. Now, regarding additional actions in my process, I would begin to my investigation carefully. I think one of the big mistakes, if you're really going to catch somebody, is starting off with a big loud announcement of this has happened and terrible things are going to occur and I'm taking the internet away from everybody. I think that students who would be more likely to have information and share information are going to be less likely when they're put in a situation where everybody knows that somebody talked, if anything happens. So I think it needs to be handled subtly. I don't want Miss Walker to run back to her class the following day and angrily and make announcements to the class about what has happened and how all of them are going to have a miserable rest of the school year because of it. I think that's just going to put her more in their sights than really help us find the culprit. I would start looking at her students. I'd create a list of the students and their academic standing. I think you can eliminate a lot of people here. Obviously, I don't think freshmen and sophomores are a consideration here because I doubt they'd have the same response to a difficult class that seniors would have as seniors approached graduating and possible graduation awards. I would look closely at Randy Franks, but I wouldn't start off by only interviewing him and treating him like the sole suspect here as we went through. Again, I think you have to be measured in your approaches to an investigation. And I would talk to our IT department immediately about what they can do, what they suggest, what resources they have available, and what resources we could get to perhaps track down or better isolate who this might be. Next, I would take that information to create a list of students involved and begin to investigate them, their internet, and their discipline histories. Not with them in person, but what we can find of our documentation to see if I can whittle that list down further. I'd have a staff meeting to introduce the issue to our staff and to brief them on the process and internet protocols, hoping here that they would be a resource to me, not trying to create an uproar about what may happen. And again, I would inform them of the need to handle this quietly if the culprit is going to be found. All the while, I would continue to keep an open dialogue with Ms. Walker. I want to make sure that everything is done with her in mind. both in and outside of class, and ask her what kind of things like release days or classroom support, maybe an additional person in the room or counseling that might be available would be interesting or interested to her. After a few days of the investigation, and again, I kind of have making the assumption here we won't find somebody right away or a lot of this would become irrelevant, I would draft a letter to send out to parents stating that we had this problem occur, that there are consequences that will be in play. The culprits would have stronger consequences if they had to be found and didn't come forward on their own, and please to give me any information. I think this is important to let make our primary stakeholder involved in the process. I'm not keeping secrets, and at the same time, I want them to be aware that if something were found, there are going to be consequences. I would then plan an assembly or a message. I even thought about maybe creating a video that I could have delivered to my students explaining what happened, only the parts of it I want them to know, and what the consequences could be, and why this is an important behavior to address quickly. Category 3, the resolution of the issue. Now, there's going to be a lot of ifs here in resolution. If the culprit is found, what consequences are appropriate for that culprit? I think we have to, there's a temptation here to say I'm going to rain whatever the strongest wording of the law down upon whoever I find, but there's a chance that I find somebody who's on the perimeter of our education system, not a very successful student, using this as a social means to gain favor of his peers. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be consequences, but I think that would be dealt differently than someone who's discovered to have reacted with malice and this is a bullying behavior. We have to consider who I might find and whether or not expulsion is the right route to go immediately, whether suspension and first, whether change of placement that's not an expulsion. Is this a criminal case? Lots of questions there that involve this resolution. I need to look also at how the process worked during the investigation. What things, what documentation, what policies could be changed in the future. I want to come out of this with a better approach to the next time, or perhaps even better still, a no next time approach that will allow that this doesn't happen again. Continuing with resolution. Again, I'm going to put my emphasis on Miss Walker. I think that regardless of how the investigation pans out, my support of her is probably the most important thing, not just for her, not just for me, but for the entire staff. I have to set a tone that I'm going to support teachers in this situation. I was very happy in the reading to see that Mr. Forbes, Dr. Forbes, did not blame her or immediately say, you're the problem here. If you weren't a teacher like this, if you weren't so rigorous, this wouldn't have happened. I think that would have been a really counterproductive measure that could have lost me a good teacher, in addition to perhaps not finding the culprit. On to category 4, debrief. As I mentioned, there are a lot of what ifs here. And I don't know that we'll find this person. I have to expect to have a plan to move on beyond that, whether I find them or not. And my primary goal here should be for her career. Obviously, her safety in the moment, but moving forward, I want her to be the best teacher she can be. That everybody benefits in that case. Again, like I said, I'm glad that we did not. I did not tell her to just calm down, and she's making a big deal out of things. I think that there is a big difference here, as I said, between calm down, you're overreacting, and calm down so I understand everything clearly. I was very glad to find out that was the position I started with. I would have not been in a good place had I created more of a problem with her while still having an investigation to conduct. Other things that occurred to me as I was going through here, as I mentioned, what do we do if we don't find somebody? Are there still changes that occur? What do I still change policy? How can I better protect my teachers, whether this person is caught or not? If I do find the person, how do I establish a precedent here for what I'm going to do with this kind of behavior? And how will discipline be adjusted in the future to deal with this? If I don't find the person, how am I going to move forward to secure safety for my staff and students? What can I upgrade in our security measures? What steps do I need to take perhaps to minimize internet access that would avoid this? Category 5, looking at Standard 5 and my behavior. I believe my actions were appropriate with respect to Miss Walker. I was committed to her. I was committed to her career. I was honest. I didn't run out and say, I'm going to find who did this and this is what's going to happen to him. I told her that this is where this is going and this is where I want to be for her and for her career and for the safety of the school. I also think that I was careful in my investigation. As I mentioned earlier, I've seen a lot of investigations blown before they begin because any chance that someone is going to come forward is ruined by a teacher storming into class and making statements and taking things away from students right away, where no one is going to sympathize. The likelihood is of the 150 students that Ms. Walker might teach, 120 of them are probably very sympathetic to her, and those are the students who would come forward. And to anger those students by taking away privileges that they did not lose or did not deserve to lose is probably taking one of my best resources away from me. I think I was true to myself personally in quite a few ways. I avoided those measures, which I do believe that jumping to those kinds of actions doesn't really represent who I am. I don't think that's the kind of person I am when faced with a crisis, is to overreact and then kind of deal with the mess I've made. I also think that it's true to me because I don't want to put somebody else in an unpopular position. I don't like to make false accusations. I don't like to see what happens when I throw a bomb in the water and see who comes floating up. That's just, again, not who I am. And I think I put Miss Walker first in making sure that I understood she had to protect her career rather than put the investigation on the forefront and nothing else. I took a lot of care to inform myself of the policies. I think getting everything lined up before I start, and again, not jumping to conclusions, was important, and knowing what I could do rather than just jumping in and seeing what happens. That's true to me as well. I was happy with my communication with parents and how that related to Standard 5. They are my #1 stakeholder group, and I think I was honest, I was transparent, I was unbiased with them. I did not, this was not a witch hunt. I told them that I was looking for the betterment of the school for their children, and that's what I would intend to do. Again, we had a lot of resolution here and unknowns in our resolutions, but I have to consider still the safety and instruction and policy that would happen afterwards. I think looking at that safety long term is a commitment to the expectations of Standard 5, with the staff and students being at the forefront of that. Who are my stakeholders and how am I going to move my campus forward beyond this incident? All right. So that is my case study on internet use, and I hope that everything went well and that it is understandable. Thank you very much.